Hello, you're listening to the Inside Elland Road podcast with me, Joe Donoghue, and YEP chief football writer Graham Smith. Leeds United won all three of their festive fixtures, a time of year typically synonymous with a little blip, trip, or stumble in results. Oxford United, Stoke City, and Derby County have all been dispatched without incident and without conceding a goal. Leeds' prize? Another 2 games in quick succession, at home to Blackburn and away to Hull. Won't somebody think of the journalists and their Christmas mileage? I mean, I say that, but as many of you will be aware, one half of the Inside Elland Road podcast decided that an 8 p.m. kickoff at Stoke away on Boxing Day wasn't quite to his taste. I wonder who that could have been. Graham Smith?
I regret nothing.
I regret going to Stoke, even though it was a good win of what we could see of it. That was the coldest to my bones that I've been this season.
Yeah, it's been quite a mild season so far. We haven't had a game where I felt ill because of how cold I'd been. But I was very glad to be warm and toasty under a blanket with a dairy-free version of Bailey's in my hand, trying to peer through the screen to see if Jayden Bogle was on the ball on the far side. That was incredible. The fog was just insane. It was really hard to see, and I believe it was really, really hard for you to see from your vantage point as well.
It was quite difficult. It was, you know how sometimes the TV coverage maybe doesn't do it justice when you're at a game. It very much did do it justice, because while we could hear the Leeds fans in the away end, which was sort of in the corner on the other side of the stadium in Stoke, you couldn't really see them for large parts. The fog kind of lifted midway through the first half, which was a nice reprieve. And then over half time, it kind of rolled back in. So we were back to just kind of guessing and looking and seeing, oh, is that Dan James? Yeah, there is. He's gone through again. Bogle's played him down the right again. And yeah, that's kind of how we had to cover the game. But again, like I was saying in the intro, 3 wins, I believe 7 goals from those 3 games, and none conceded. I really think this has the potential for Leeds going on a bit of a run if they can maintain this good form at home to Blackburn, who've hit a little bit of a rough patch at the moment, and then away at Hull, who, I know they got a win in their last time out, but every time I've watched Hull this season, they've not been good. So potential to go 5 wins on the bounce, which would be a real statement to the rest of the league at a very, very important juncture of the season.
Well, it would back up what one half of the Inside Elland Road podcast has been saying for a long time, that this team is very capable of going on a mad run. It feels to me like that mad run might have begun, but we'll see. Famous last words. What I liked about those 2 performances was that while Stoke were honking and while Leeds made Derby look honking, there was both elements of those games that have proved difficult for Leeds in the past. The physicality of Stoke. I mean, here, Joe, at one point I thought I was watching Gorillas in the Mist, but it was just Stoke's big number 9 leaving a late one on every single Leeds player he came into contact with. He was at it with Meslier. Who else did he went?
Ampadu.
Stood on Ampadu. There was at least 3 or 4. I think he might have Polak's Rodon at one point.
I'll tell you who else, right? Wouter Berger kept giving Aronson, all right, grilling all evening. Hey?
Yeah, they had some serious beef.
Good.
They stood up to it, and they played their football, and they stuck to the plan. And they stuck to the plan at Derby too, in a game that it felt like, oh, we've seen this one before. Missed chances, completely controlling it, and then suddenly Derby start to win attacking free kicks in wide areas and dangerous positions, and you think this is a very good set-piece team at some point. And you pointed out they were pinning Pascal Struijk, when they attacked Leeds' box by putting 2 around him and trying to nullify his defensive ability in the air so they could profit from it. And you started to think, is this one of those where they nick it? Paul Warren thought it looked like a 0-0 where we might nick one from a corner or a free kick. But then Leeds defended really, really well. The aerial threat. Meslier was only partially tested once. And then they stuck to the plan. They were patient, and they put together that just picture-perfect move, penetrated the defence, and Aronson scores it won't get goal of the season because goal of the seasons are only really given to long distance strikes or volleys or overheads. But that was a stunner and a game that deserved to win, a goal that deserved to win that game or any game. And they dealt with both of those games really, really well. I thought, some really good individual performances, solid team performances, very solid at the back, clean sheets. It was the perfect response to the recent away form criticism.
It was indeed. Do you think that is your favourite goal of the season, that Brenden Aaronson finish? Because the prolonged build-up, they had to be really patient. They had to be so precise, and then it almost felt as though when they did want to turn it on and they wanted to play really fast and one touch, that was when they did. Solomon with a nice turn infield from Byram's pass, Piroe spotting the run of Aaronson, which again, that goal doesn't. They don't even get a shot on target without the run from Aaronson, which is nice. And then just a very cultured, composed finish, which again we haven't seen all too often from Aaronson. We didn't see it in the first half when he blazed one over from Joseph's little cushioned layoff. But yeah, he came up with the goods when it mattered. Do you think that's your favourite goal of this season?
That's difficult. I'd have to watch them all back. Has anyone hit a screamer from distance?
I just mean in general, in football in general.
My favourite goal this season in football in general?
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Do you know what my favourite goal in football in general is this season?
What?
It was also scored the same day that Leeds played Derby. It was by Apostolos Stamatolopoulos, the Motherwell striker. He scored against Rangers to make it 1-0, which I'm led to believe was a nice goal.
Okay, great, thanks.
That was good. that one, or if we're looking for an absolute rasper of a finish, I don't know if you caught the game a couple of weeks ago, but there was between Liverpool and Newcastle, Alexander Isak scored an absolute barnstormer from outside the box in that game. 3-3, I think it finished.
You think it finished? Yeah, for a Borough fan to say something nice about Newcastle is really refreshing. I'm just trying to think.
You know what? Before we move on to more Leeds United topics, right? I think we need to get something out into the open. A lot of people saw what you posted onto the World Wide Web on Christmas Day, no less at 8 a.m. Right, so when people were going on their phones or their laptops for the first time, getting their new devices, and they're like, "Oh, who should I go on Twitter? Oh, there's a post from Graham Smith right at the top." And what was it?
Just to describe for those who haven't seen it, I posted a really lovely, like a Christmas card scene, like a Hallmark family scene, with Luke Ayling and Ravanelli as the parents, and Juninho as the slightly larger child, and Joe Donahue as the younger child. It just so happened that Borough must have at some point been selling Christmas pajamas, because this picture existed with like a Borough badge on the Christmas stockings in the background on the mantelpiece. It was perfection, and it was absolutely worth that half an hour period where Mrs. Smith was going mad because I wasn't helping with the Christmas dinner or building the new Christmas toys with the kids. No, I can't. I've got something really important to do, to post on the internet.
It was
worth
good.
it. Again,
it got a
no
mention.
regrets.
It got a mention in my household as well, to say the least. So please take some encouragement from that. Yeah, maybe not my favorite Christmas card I've ever seen. Not least because you decided to say "Merry Christmas" from the Inside Ellen Road podcast. Very nice, festive. You're giving your well wishes to supporters. Next, from me and the wee man. Right, okay. Take an issue with that. Thanks for listening and interacting this year, with a little Christmas kiss at the end. Which, you know what, I think the sentiment is absolutely fine. Did it need the Christmas card attachment? Did it? Balls. But did it baubles? But no, it was very creative, very funny, and that's we've covered that, and we don't need to. What's the word? We don't need to go address it ever again.
Okay, Dan James from outside the area with next to no backlift and not a great deal of contact on the ball. when he sent that one absolute. Which game was that? That was
Was
at
that
home,
Plymouth?
home against Plymouth. What a strike that was!
Yeah,
That's
that was good.
probably my favourite Leeds goal this season.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, my favourite Leeds goal is Aronson's the other night against Derby, because that was, just because it's not a strike from distance doesn't mean there's not beauty in it. I mean, think of the goal that Argentina scored against Serbia and Montenegro at the 2006 World Cup, which went through, I think, 26 passes, possibly more. Every single player on outfielder touched it before. Oh, this is really going to test my knowledge here. Esteban Cambiaso finished it, I think.
You freak.
There you go. Calling me a freak, shaking his head on camera. That's the Inside Ellen Road way. No, that I do think that was a fantastic finish. And Daniel Farke agreed. He said it was his goal of the season so far as well. So, yeah, top that, Leeds. Keep
Straight into
going
his
on.
poetry album.
Yeah, he did. In fact, tell people what he said about that, Farke.
He said it was going straight into his poetry album, which means somewhere Daniel Farke in his house either has a manila folder with A4 like pictures of the celebrations of goals, or he's got a file on his laptop named Poetry, in which the clips are placed of his favorite Leeds goals. But it was poetic, and it was the way, like you're right, the way they kept possession. Ampadu keeping them on the front foot, taking up that position, 40 yards from Derby's goal, and just ensuring that the ball kept moving it to the right, moving it left, and then coming back inside. And Derby were at that point tiring. Warren admitted that his players had kind of gassed out and they were starting to fatigue. And it's that thing we've talked about recently of Leeds United being the superior athletes, having Premier League athletes. And Solomon has, Farke has been able to bring on Manor Solomon, who recently has started to show he is a difference maker at this level that we kind of hoped he would show, but he didn't show it for the first part of the season. But recently he's really turned it on. He's brought on Dan James, who has been in electric form of late, and he's brought on Joel Piroe, who's leading the side in scoring. He's brought those players all off the bench, so they're fresh and sharp, and Derby's defence have been, concentrating, and they've been shifting left and right, and they just couldn't do that extra yard that meant that Solomon had space to turn. He plays the ball into Piroe. Nobody can get to Piroe quickly enough to stop the pass. Nobody can match the run of Aronson. Maybe the most impressive thing is that Aronson still has that dart in him after 79 minutes and so much football of late. And Derby simply couldn't stick with Leeds to stop that from happening. And yeah, fantastic goal.
Yeah. I mean, what was your favourite moment of, apart from the goal, maybe something off the pitch, your favourite moment or story from the 1-0 win over Derby County? I've got a feeling I might know what it is.
Okay, was it Carl Darlow? You pointing out that Carl Darlow almost wiped out two tiny Derby County mascots?
I completely forgot about that. That was a heart and mouth situation. Oh my word! So basically, anybody who's been to a football game and gets into the ground before kickoff, you'll see when the goalkeepers are warming each other up, one of them will invariably be sort of on or around halfway, and both goalkeepers will sort of take long kicks out of their hands, and they'll take it down either on the feet or catch in practice, that sort of stuff. Carl Darlow, in his pursuit of what was a wayward kick from the Leeds goal during the warm-up, Darlow's on halfway. He's got his eye on the ball and he's running, keeping his eye on the ball, running across towards the dugouts, which is where a line of very small children as the mascots are stood. And I'm watching it happen and I'm thinking, oh my God, that 6'3", 33-year-old man is going to clatter into a line of small children and knock them down like bowling pins. And that is going to be just a horrendous end to someone's Christmas. He managed to stop himself just before. In fact, no, the ball didn't go as far as it could have veered right. But if it did veer any further right, I think Darlow might have been clearing out a small child. We're talking, it is so close as well. We're talking 1 or 2 steps different. And then after that, one of the chaperones or match day operations staff at Derby then went and stood sort of in front of the children, just in case there were any further wayward kicks. I felt like I was watching it in slow motion.
A great moment. The routine, there's an unwritten kind of agreement that teams will tolerate the presence of a second or third string goalkeeper or goalkeeping coach in their half of the pitch during the warm-up, so that the goalkeepers can practice their goal kicks and they're kicking out their hands. But it is the source of some tremendous passive-aggressive glares, because quite often this season, opposition goalkeepers, when they're practicing taking goal kicks and kicking it to their left, they're landing the ball maybe 5 or 10 yards or even inside the rectangle where Leeds play their possession game towards the end of the warm-up. So the outfield players all gather. They play in 2 teams with a player in a bib at each end. 2 of the substitutes positioned at each end of the rectangle as for the bounce pass, and they'll pass to either team, whoever is in possession. And goalkeepers are clearing the ball, and Chris Domagala stands almost on his tiptoes, in the style of a terrace hooligan. He's just shy of pointing at the opposition goalkeeper and goalkeeping coach and pointing to the outside. I absolutely love it. I love watching it. I love watching him glare down the pitch as they commit the crime of kicking the ball quite near some Leeds players. But of course, Meslier has to practice his as well. And on this occasion, it almost led to Karl Darlow spending his New Year's Eve in the cells.
I'm not quite sure he would have been in the cells. I think he would have maybe been orchestrating some form of signed shirt for a wiped out child. I mean, there's also, it should be said, there are also a number of wayward shots in the warm-ups that do catch people off guard in stadiums. You see it every game. It one that evades the sort of netting behind the goal, and takes out someone holding a cup of Bovril or something. It's the little things that you go to the match for. But no, that wasn't my favorite moment, and I think we do have the same moment from the Derby game.
Okay, I've got it.
This is going to be another left field, not exactly, not the setup that I'm prepping you for. Come on.
It was the guy who managed to almost get himself lynched by both sets of supporters as stewards wrestled him out of Pride Park.
Yeah, that was funny.
No, I know what it is. It was the presence of 2 distinguished guests all the way from Kawasaki in Japan, there in support of their darling boy, Ao Tanaka, who were given the customary and traditional Leeds United authentic travel experience with a overly crowded train cans, and the aid and assistance of Google Translate.
Yeah, you've spoken to one of the fans who was serenading the Tanakas, Mr. and Mrs. On the train journey back from Derby. I was just saying to you, I love that they're not in first class. They quite, I mean, probably could. They could have said, "Oh, do you find spotting us a little bit of cash so we're in first class?" No, they've just jumped on LNER, and the way that the photo is set up as well, it almost looks as though they're not even in the same. So they're both on aisle seats opposite each other. Yeah, I think there's some really nice videos from the train and from the stand at Derby, because that must be a really nice moment for them, because there was a few chants of Tanaka's song, and I imagine they received a lot of thank yous from Leeds fans for giving birth to him. Because he has been good. He's been very good.
Yeah. I will just pull you up. It probably would have been East Mids Railway or cross country. Probably not LNER.
It looked like an LNER carriage though.
From Derby? I can't see it. But yeah, very, very
Tell you what,
wholesome.
if it was, I'm gonna hold that one over you.
Very, very wholesome. And by all accounts, I checked in with the club to make sure that this couple was not simply a hilarious case of mistaken identity, who were enjoying the hospitality of Leeds fans with zero connection whatsoever to Ao Tanaka. It was indeed his parents, and they very much enjoyed themselves, the journey. They met a Leeds fan decked out in a Japan shirt with Tanaka on the back, and yes, they did very much enjoy hearing their son's song. It must be a surreal, like a tremendously surreal experience, because the English football match day experience is quite different to that of other cultures and other countries. Even within England, the Leeds United match day experience can stand apart from the experience of some other clubs. But also the standing and the esteem with which Leeds fans hold their son, it must have been surreal for them, to see the dedication and to hear the fact that they've got a dedicated chant for him, and the fact that they absolutely love him to bits already when he only moved over in the summer. I bet they didn't get this in Dusseldorf.
Oh, I don't know. I think German fan culture is similar. I agree with what you're saying, that the Leeds United experience is pretty unique in English football. Compared to if he was, at a different English club, which maybe doesn't have as strong an away following. But no, I think I can't really speak to Dusseldorf individually, but you do see the German fans do follow their teams pretty well.
Oh, they do, but did they have songs anywhere near as good as the one that gets sung for Tanaka?
You know what? This is where my European football knowledge hits its limit, because I actually don't know the terrace chants of
If they have
Fortuna
something
Düsseldorf.
better than Tanaka sung to Tequila, then I will apologize to the entire nation of Germany, and I'll deliver a hand typed, because one of my sons, of course, asked for a typewriter for Christmas. I will type out a letter of apology and deliver it to Daniel Farke, and he can accept it on behalf of his nation.
That has actually just reminded me of something, because we haven't had the chance to record since before Christmas, before the Oxford press conference. And obviously you were off because, December, it's a time for Graham Smith's holidays. Sorry, the holidays. So went to the press conference, went along, and I thought, you know what? We do speak to Daniel most weeks, and we speak to him several times most weeks. I want to kind of ask him something little bit left field that might catch him a little bit off guard. He played his part and responded with a 2-line answer, which is very much unlike him. But I don't really know what I was expecting. It was to do with his son, who's playing in Germany's second tier at the moment, who is not scoring goals, but he's playing regularly for Paderborn. And after the press conference, after the cameras were off and microphones had been turned off, he asked me, how did you know about that? And I said, well, I was watching a bit of the Zweite Bundesliga, so that was the first lie. I came across a 17-year-old who was starting games, so I thought I'd have a look at him on Transfermarkt. Now that's only a half lie; it's a little white lie. We had a very brief discussion. Farke made a nice joke about his son's market value, given that he was now being reported on in the English press. And then he went out of the room scratching beneath his eyelid, as he does when he makes a little joke. I just thought it was a nice little bit of behind the scenes information. You might disagree, Graham.
Sometimes you have to be there with a little white lie. No, good story. Interesting one to follow. Should probably just sign him for Leeds, shouldn't they? It just feels like a nice, easy one to do. Nice for the Farke family as well. And we can have loads of tremendous narrative about nepotism in football. Is it remarkable that a 17-year-old starting that many games in the second tier in Germany? It feels like it feels to me remarkable anytime a 17-year-old starts in the Championship in England because of the nature of the division.
It is pretty. Oh, do I want to say remarkable? I don't know. I'd say it's certainly less ordinary than you could imagine it in France, for example, where you do quite frequently get teenagers playing a lot of games. Germany, because of the youth football infrastructure in Germany, you've got a lot of sort of hurdles to clear before you are playing first team. So it's either he's demonstrated in B team games that he's up to the task in playing against men in the fourth tier, or in training he's clearly head and shoulders above his age mates. Because when you think about 17 is very young. Obviously Archie Gray was playing for Leeds last season at that age, not in any stretch comparing Farke's son to Archie Gray, even though they play in a similar position. But you look at James De Bayo, I think he's 19, has still barely had a sniff. Sam Chambers has played a little bit, but he's 17 and certainly looks 17 as well in terms of his size and his frame. Farke's son is not. He's 6'2", and he's a presence in midfield. But it's just one to keep an eye on. We'll see what comes of that. We might be the first ever English speaking podcast that discussed a future German international. Who knows?
Perhaps. Speaking of precocious talents, because we were doing the press conference for the Blackburn game under embargo after the press conference, so we did back-to-back press conferences. That's the way of it at this time of year. After the Derby game, we discussed Derby, then we moved on to Blackburn. But because I had an extra question, I thought I'd ask about Harry Gray, because we haven't spoken about him really since the summer. He was out in Germany with the team and looking very much the part of it as a very, very, very young striker. He's 16, the latest in the lineage, the rich family history that the Greys have with the club. But he picked up that back injury, quite a common one for teenagers, but one that's kept him out of action and kind of stopped that runaway train that was perhaps in danger of picking up steam, because he was involved in the summer and people expecting him to see him in the first team in the Championship at 16. He hasn't been playing, doing lots of individual work in his rehab, but Farke confirmed that his first steps back will be taken with the under-21s, and the plan was for him to develop in the 21s. I don't think even if he'd been fully fit, I don't think there'd really be a case for him right now anyway, because Peru is scoring the goals that he's scoring. They've got Mateo Joseph, who started against Derby. It's been a while since he scored and it's been a while since he assisted, but the potential is there, and he's obviously ahead of Harry in his development. And then you've got Patrick Bamford as well. So they do have 3 senior options ahead of Harry Gray. So I wouldn't have anticipated seeing him yet anyway. Maybe the FA Cup, there might have been a case for that, but Farke confirmed that the plan is for him to return when he returns with the 21s.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't think it's the worst thing in the world that he's had this injury at this point, because think back to before Archie's breakthrough season, he was out for about 6 months, or rather, he was kept out for a prolonged period just to make sure that everything was right, and that's exactly the way to go about it with a young player who is still growing, still developing, and he's not at his final physical form as a sort of late teenager. So yeah, I think it's the right thing to do with him. When he does come back with the 21s, that'll be something of note. But yeah, no, good question. Right of you to ask it. Keep people abreast of the situation. It's actually quite nice that we're able to record this pre-embargo, but by the time we finish recording, it'll be post-embargo. So we're gonna be right on the money.
We are. The other thing that Farke discussed when it came to team news was that Max Fober returned to team training on Sunday, but it was only the light session they do, match day -1, and so he's involved again, but he's not ready to start, I would venture, which kind of brings into question Sam Byram and Isaac Schmidt. Does this schedule finally open a window of opportunity for Isaac Schmidt Or do they stick Sam Byram in cold storage and thaw him out again at like 11 a.m. on New Year's Day? He's played a lot of football, Samuel Byram, and Farke admitted to me that it's been a crazy load for Byram and that he's delivered more than Leeds expected him to be able to deliver. He played 290s within 3 days, which is a lot. You know, for a player that's had the injury problems he's had, he's 31. They've always known they have to be careful with him. Last season there were hamstring problems. He started this season with a bit of an issue, and then he didn't really have to start a game until October. But he started a lot of games I think it's 10 of the last 13 he started. 3 starts within 7 days. You just wonder if it's a risk or a stretch too far. Farke didn't want to play Schmidt behind Ramazani at Derby because Derby are very good at set pieces, very big, strong, physical, good at heading the ball. He wanted Byram in there for that reason, and he was very, very solid. Blackburn, it's a different kind of test. So is there more of a case to say, let's not risk Byram at a time when Junior Firpo's out and Wöber's still not back? Let's finally give Isaac Schmidt his run out.
Potentially so, yeah. I mean, Farke did make the point, didn't he? Obviously, a little tongue-in-cheek reference, but he was like, "I think we'll put Sam in the ice bath, and I don't think I'll let him out between now and New Year's Day," is what he said. I agree with the sentiment. I think it's probably for the best if he did do that, because yeah, as you say, you know, he's played 290s in a row. I didn't know that 10 of the last 13 starts have been 10 of the last 13 games he started. But then, yeah, when you consider that Firpo's been suspended, he's been injured, Bogle was suspended for that game because of the 5 yellows, and now obviously Wöber is out as well. Yeah, he has played a lot of football during a really congested period, so it is one to consider. Does Blackburn's Tyrese Dolan, does he play on the right?
That's what I was thinking. He did come up a lot against Firpo, didn't he?
Yeah.
It was Firpo, wasn't it, at Blackburn?
Yeah, it was Firpo, yeah.
It was definitely Firpo at Blackburn. Yeah, and he's a tricksy one. That Dolan. I mean, he's not a week in, week out player. You know, we were chatting to the Blackburn press after the game and saying, you know, how class he was, and wondering if they might find it hard to hang on to him. And their sentiment was very much, I wish he did that every game, because I don't think he is the picture of consistency. But if ever there's a team that switches players on to their best form, and if ever there was a stadium in the Championship that players really want to grace with a fine performance, it's Leeds and it's Ellen Road. So you've got to prepare for him at his best. You've got to expect him to be at his absolute best. And that's probably where Farke's maybe most difficult selection decision comes for New Year's Day. I mean, I think Piroe goes back in.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dan James goes back in. And I think Solomon goes back in. I think Aronson starts again.
Which side are you putting Dan James on?
I'm putting Dan James on the right.
However, the point that Farke made about not starting Ramazani and Schmidt on the same side, I think that's because A, they're both diminutive players, but also Ramazani's defensive capabilities maybe aren't at the same level as a James or a Gnonto. So would you maybe start Gnonto again on the left, or put James on the left to maybe give that support if you are going to have to start Schmidt?
No, because I would hope that Farke, when it comes to his priorities, I mean, he always says our approach to every game is the same. We want to win every game, so we want to play the same way, home or away. I would extend that to your team selection, where you'll think, shall I play Dan James on the left to help us defensively, or shall I play him on the right, where he and Jayden Bogle have got such a good thing going to help us actually go and win the game? Yeah. I think being the protagonist is more important. I think James stays on the right. Him and Bogle have been superb together. And I'd like to see them have a go at Blackburn on the right at Ellen Road. And then I would probably think Solomon and Byram, probably. Like I understand the risk because I've kind of brought it up myself to pose the question, but my gut instinct is that he'll go with Byram again, with the knowledge that if they have the game in hand and they're winning it, they could bring Schmidt off the bench to play left back for the last half an hour or whatever. But they do need to take care of Byram, because it's not just that he plays left back as solidly as he does. It's the fact that he's your first choice alternate at right back as well.
He's new Dallas.
New old Dallas. Old new Dallas, yeah.
Old new Dallas.
Dallas before Dallas was Dallas. Because he did predate Dallas at least.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Similar age though, aren't they?
I think he's a little bit younger than Dallas.
He's 31.
Put up 200 Leeds appearances last night though against Derby.
That's a fine achievement in the modern era, and particularly to do it in 2 stints as well. Slightly unusual. Not the only one though. Illan Meslier, 200 games as well
at 24, which is remarkable.
But yeah, and being a keeper, I suppose I don't want to say it's easier being a keeper, but if you are the number one,
see how many goals you would have conceded in 200 games for Leeds.
Yeah, but if you are the number one and you're not under a great deal of pressure for a lot of that time, then I would say it's easier than a Sam Byram putting up 200. But both good achievements, both great dances.
Yeah, well done to them. I've just come across something on Twitter or X, and it's a fan, Gavin Dixon, is recorded his son trying to pronounce Joshua Guilavoghi's name. And to be honest, I've not been the best with pronunciation, because I believe it's probably Guilavoghi, but I've been pronouncing the L. And Joshua himself has replied with, "You say it better than most of my teammates," and then a crying, laughing emoji, which I mean, it's not as though he needed to help his own personal PR with Leeds fans anymore, did he? But he's just going about it in the right way.
That's tremendous. Yeah.
And I can believe that as well. Funny. And last night as well, we were sort of pitch side waiting to speak with Ethan Ampadu, and Guilavoghi and Isaac Schmidt were sort of going through their warm down. And as they're coming off the pitch, there's a few fans waiting behind sort of a cordon, asking for a picture or a signature or something, or just a little bit of FaceTime with them. And I don't think Schmidt heard them, but they both kind of head down the tunnel, and Guilavoghi, who was on the nearer side to where the fans were, he kind of pops his head back out and then comes back and goes and speaks to them. But before he does that, he fetches Isaac Schmidt. He's just like, no, come on, get yourself out here. And he's like, Schmidt's like, oh wait, they're Leeds fans. And yeah, they had a little moment and a couple of pictures taken. So I thought that was really nice. But yeah, I think he's won all 8 of his first 8 appearances as a Leeds player. Now, again, he hasn't really done that much on the pitch when he's been in those games. So it's not like he's played 8 90s and has won all 8. But still a nice record to have, I believe.
And you're not bringing him on when you're 1-0 down with 10 minutes to go, are you? You're bringing on.
That's kind of the point I'm making. Yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing on your Solomons. You're bringing on your Gnontos, your Josephs, your Bamfords of the world. Yeah, I think it's a signing that's worked out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Probably better than Farke might have imagined. With all his reservations about signing a player who hadn't been in action for that long, and what they've gained in character and experience as well is significant, for the group, and a young group at that. And you wonder, will he be the last arrival for this squad this season?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think yes, unless there is a catastrophic injury sequence against Blackburn or Hull
or Harrogate. Yeah, I I very much get the sense from Leeds that the expectation is for a quiet window, that Farke's not bluffing on that. They feel like they're in good shape. Well, at the top of the league with 51 points, so there's a case there. The pessimist and the journalist in me would very much like them to explore the possibility of a 10. Because if something happens to Aronson, then I think the 10 position becomes a bit more problematic. I mean, it might be, right, just in the way that with central midfield, when they lost both defensive midfielders, replaced them with 8s and realised, oh, actually, this works. It's fine. Let's carry on. Let's roll on. It might be that Aronson picks up an injury, Gnonto plays there, or Solomon or Ramazani. It clicks in the way that Rutter clicked when he was moved to 10 last season. And we go, oh, they've rolled with this punch as well. It's fine. On they go. That might well be the case. But I don't know. I always think a bit of insurance is best. And if you can do it, then why not? But it would be finding an opportunity that fits in terms of P&S, fits in terms of character, fits in terms of expectation that the player or his club might have for game time, because you would imagine it would probably be more likely to be a loan than a permanent in January. Farkas, always says we'll stay awake, and that Leeds would have to respond if they did have, a horrific situation at fullback, for example, or a horrific situation up front or at 10. I feel like out wide they're pretty well stocked, in a central midfield they're pretty well stocked, and about to be even better stocked when Gruev gets back. They'll be oversubscribed in the midfield area. So there's only a couple of areas where it would really take a bit of action should something go wrong. But I don't know. I'd still like them to be very, very certain that there's nothing out there that's doable and advantageous.
In terms of outgoings, then, what do we anticipate? Because obviously the squad isn't too big anyway, but it is stacked with quality at this level. I notice a few fans still suggesting that Max Wöber might be an exit. I personally can't see that happening in January, given the lack of, well, not the lack of options, but currently the unavailability of options at fullback, and how that could very realistically present itself again at a later stage in the season. Wöber is going to be needed. Joffrey, though, is probably the one that I think we've discussed it before, but now that we are merely days from the January window, I think it's most likely that there will be an exit on the cards on loan for Joe Gelhardt.
Yeah, get yourself Joff, son. Go and play some football. That's the plan from Leeds, and that's the plan from the players' side of things. He's understandably very open to the idea of playing football in the second half of the season, and there's no shortage of suitors. We listed some of the Championship clubs that had looked at him last season and were still keen on him this season. Interest in Scotland as well, interest abroad. He'll go and he'll play somewhere else, unless, of course, there's an unforeseen catastrophe at Leeds. With it would probably take 3 injuries, wouldn't it? For him to really get a chance. So it's the best for all. And as for Max Wöber, the only way I could ever see something happening in January with the situation as it is if he decides, I'm off, I want to go right now, and Leeds find a bit of business that makes sense incoming, but that incoming would have to be lined up, guaranteed, almost through the door before you even let Wöber go. And I can't see that being the case. But that's the only way it would happen for me, because you're not so blessed at fullback that you could say, yeah, we can let that happen. And also he's a really, really good option for centre back as well. He came to the club when they needed a left back, but they really signed a centre back, didn't they, who can also play left back. So he covers 2 positions. He's got quality that is and should be above and beyond the level of the Championship. It would be folly to let him go without having something very, very good coming the other way and already lined up.
Yeah, I think that's pretty a nice little roundup of the situation of the outgoings. Yeah, I think a quiet January is what we can expect, which, to be honest, might be a blessing. I know it's not what every fan wants to hear, but when you have a busy January, it's usually indicative of a team which is in crisis or a team which desperately needs reinforcements. Look at Sheffield United, for example. The injury situation that they've got there. Harry Sutter out for the season. Ollie Arblaster out for the season. You've got, 16 and 17-year-olds on the bench, and it's not in the case of when Sam Chambers or James DeBeo are in Leeds' squad. For the best will in the world, they're not going to come on in games unless Leeds are 3 goals to the good. They are the players that are coming on to change things, whereas Leeds are bringing on Gnonto, Ramazani, Piru, Joseph, Bamford, those types of players. Leeds are in a good spot, and it's not like they need to offload for cash. It's not like they need to offload because they've got an unsettled squad with loads of players who aren't playing. They don't need to add experience, like a Sunderland, for example. They don't need to add quality in 3 or more positions, like Sheffield United. It's a good situation to be in if they don't add anybody, because again, it means that they haven't sustained any serious injuries. But yeah, that's kind of the glass half full look at it. Obviously, everyone would love a number 10 to come in January because it's the sexy thing to do. But I tell you what, I tweeted it yesterday. Brendan Aronson with 7 goals at roughly the halfway stage, or certainly before the turn of the year, is not what I had expected when it became apparent that he was going to come back into the team at Leeds. I honestly never thought goals were his game, and yet he's put a few into the back of the net this season. Interestingly enough, and I'm not comparing the two. Well, you know what? Maybe I am. And again, I don't think I choose Jorginho Rutter over Brendan Aronson 9 times out of 10. But if you want to look at the numbers, Georgie finished the season with 6 last year. Brendan has 7 this season, and we're at the halfway stage. How remarkable would it be if he finished the season on something like 15 goals? That would be stunning.
It would be incredible. There's something you also have to factor is that Georgie got 15 assists, didn't he, in the league as well? But
yes, he did. Yeah.
Goal scoring, finishing was difficult for him all season long. And Brendan's played at 10. Georgie played at 9 for a lot of the season. First half practically, and still only ended up with 6. So 7's an unbelievable return for a player that a lot of people have been calling for to be dropped, particularly for away games. He has still got this issue with composure. The Joseph layoff at Derby in Aronson's defence was difficult. It was a bouncing ball, but he did that thing that Farke's picked up on. He leaned back, and he smashed it over the bar, skied it, but he took his goal really, really well. And 7 goals is a phenomenal return for your number 10 at this stage of the season. And him and Piru are quite quietly putting together a really compelling goal-scoring case to stay in the team. Aronson's biggest strength right now for me is the positions he takes up and the runs, his movement, the runs he makes to make himself an option with late arrivals into the area. And it's paying off for him in fine style. And his confidence has got to be higher now than at any stage in the last couple of years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to take any credit for this uptick in Piru and Aronson delivering away from home. But there was some idiot in the press room at Stoke before the game who decided to tweet Joel Piru without a goal or assist in Leeds' last 5 away games. Brendan Aronson without a goal or assist on the road in his last 7 aways. Both start this evening. What happened at Stoke? I'll tell you what happened, Graham. There was a Brendan Aronson assist, and I'm counting that one as an assist. It doesn't go down officially because Victor Johansson kind of got a hand to it, but it was a great pass, so I'm giving him it.
Yeah,
an Aronson assist for a Piru goal. Then what happened at Derby 3 days later?
What else could we get you to say before Blackburn. Point out something bad. Say something about Mateo Joseph being 14 games since his last goal and 18 games since his last assist. Just tweet that.
Well, there you go. You've said it now.
No, I want you. No. I'm not the mug here. We're working out ways in which to make you look stupid.
Do not
So,
call me a mug.
What else? No goals from what you should. I've got it. No goals from centre midfield for Leeds United this season.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, because I imagine Mr. and Mrs. Tanaka will be at the Blackburn game as well. Because it's not a short bus ride from Kawasaki, is it? You're going to make a trip of it.
Yeah,
I certainly hope they weren't at the Stoke game when Tanaka was dropped or rested.
We couldn't see anything anyway. I mean, he could have told them he was playing, and they wouldn't have known. So I played really well, Dad. Did you see me?
Yeah. So I think he'll. I imagine Tanaka will start again against Blackburn. And yeah, you know what? We might get a little bit of shoulder rubbing time with Mr. and Mrs. Tanaka. Who knows? Yeah, that would really satisfy you, wouldn't it? You've been dying to get a line on the on Ao Tanaka, and you know what? You might accidentally stumble across a potential opportunity to speak with his family. How would you like that? How can we make your Christmas wish come true, Graham?
I'd be fine with that.
Look how coy he's being. Oh,
I'd be
fine with that. Yeah,
wouldn't be my first brush with a Championship family. Just briefly going back to Sheffield United, a lad on their bench for the West Brom game was in primary school 5 minutes ago with one of my kids, and quite well behaved actually when he was here for a birthday barbecue. I remember, as they were kicking a ball around in the back garden, turning to the other parents and saying, in a few years I could see him sitting on the bench for Sheffield United in a draw with West Bromwich Albion at Bramall Lane on around the festive period, and of course it's been proved exactly right. So another one for me.
Prescient as always, Graham. Do we want to do a little newsletter plug before we finish this week's episode?
No.
Why not?
Just don't fancy doing it.
What was this week's newsletter on?
It's the Christmas break. So
right, okay, yeah.
Christmas break. I mean, goodness knows what we'll be talking about. But the thoughts in my head at the minute, my verdict was on how that goal was perfection, and that you can't expect perfection from Leeds between now and the end of the season. But every single game in this division is winnable for this team. And so perfection is what they should be striving for. That's Farke sets out with the hope or intention of getting 138 points, as he keeps telling us. They're capable of beating every other team in this league, and they've shown they're capable of doing it away as well as home. So there is very little reason that I can see that this team shouldn't finish in the top two. Now, I'm not sure I can see much reason why they should finish below first. I mean, what other than something going wrong injury-wise, really, really wrong? It's really hard to see, and that's why when we speak to our counterparts at the Sheffield Star, at the Burnley Express, Sunderland Echo, wherever it might be.
Well, I mean, you might. I don't. I take this job seriously, and it's just as much of a battle in the press box in the press room as it is on the pitch. So elbows sharpened. No friends in the press box.
For 90 minutes, for 90 minutes we're enemies. But outside of that, you've got your professional relationships. They're all tipping Leeds. Everybody looks at Leeds, and what they look at Leeds and say is, "Oh my God, look what they're bringing off the bench on 70 minutes." No one else is really able to say that. Burnley have got talent, haven't they? But has anyone else got the attacking options that Leeds have got, or the defensive solidity that Struijk and Rodon and Ampadu can give them between now and May? It's really difficult to see elsewhere in the league.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. And I do think that Leeds are favourites to go up as champions for a reason. And that's because they're top of the table. They're top of the table after the halfway mark, and usually that is indicative of the team that goes up. Again, This is Leeds we're talking about. We all saw what happened at the end of last season, but they've given themselves the best possible footing to build on in the second half of the season.
Southampton aren't here, Joe. Southampton can't hurt you this season.
They can't hurt anyone this season.
Russell Martin, only themselves. Russell Martin's gone. He's not there anymore. He's not going to jump out the closet.
Tell you what, though, could he return to the Championship?
Oh, that's don't say things like that. Where are you thinking?
I mean, a vacant position for starters. Where was it that who recently changed their manager? West Brom.
Yeah.
Could you see him going to West Brom?
What have Stoke done?
I can't really see him getting involved in a relegation scrap.
No, and they are honking. I don't think they've got the chops to play his style either.
Do you think West Brom do though?
Yeah. Actually, that's not a bad. They haven't permanently replaced Carlos, have they? What a gig, by the way. Imagine going from West Brom to Valencia. I mean, I know that's
a lovely football manager move, that isn't it? You've been working away with Leeds' 23s and then Huddersfield. You had a brief stint at Olympiacos. It didn't quite work for you.
Yeah.
You came back, went to West Brom. Now you've got Valencia. Love it.
You've got the big gig. I know they've been whatever the Spanish is for basket case, El Basket case for a while, and they've had their problems, and fans have been very unhappy with Lim and all of that. They ended up with Gary Neville as manager at one stage, so things went very, very badly awry from time to time. But for Carlos Corberan as a move, that is just fantastic. It really is. I still see him as a potential future Leeds United manager. If things go well for him at Valencia, maybe one day he could be in the hot seat at Ellen Road.
A basket case in Spanish is caso perdido, which I think literally translates as lost cause, which I think is beautiful.
I love that. I love that for Carlos. Lovely guy, doesn't deserve that, and maybe he'll turn it all around. But fantastic opportunity for him. Huge blow for West Brom. So they do need to box clever, don't they, with this next appointment? I see Millwall have gone. They've gone more for tried and tested Championship merry-go-round kind of appointment with Alex Neil. That fits, doesn't it? His Preston side were quite chippy, were quite kind of in your face at times. I could see him doing just fine.
Did reasonably well at Sunderland and where else was he? Was he at Stoke as well? No, he was, but also Norwich.
I could see him doing just a fine job at Millwall. I think that'll be okay there. But yeah, the West Brom one, be interested to see what they do.
Right, predictions for Blackburn then, and let's see if we'll be recording before Hull as well. I think we will. Yeah.
You know my schedule better than me, son. I don't know if I'm coming.
No, we won't be. So actually, I need predictions for Blackburn and Hull.
Oh, right. Well, I'm gonna say they beat Blackburn 2-1 at home, and I'm gonna say that they beat Hull 1-0.
Okay, interesting. I think they beat Blackburn 2-0.
Okay.
Because they've lost to Millwall, they've drawn with Sunderland, and that was a last-minute draw, by the way, and then lost to Hull in their last three. Blackburn have. I think Leeds will just have too much, especially at home. Hull, Ruben Sellers probably has them playing a bit better, but the quality is just not there compared to Leeds. So I think it'll be a 1-0 or maybe a 2-0 away from home for Leeds. So we're both backing them to go 5 on the spin.
And a terrific feed, courtesy of Hull. You get good food at Hull, so very excited to start the year's away trips with a good one.
You know what I might do to the Blackburn the Blackburn press pack is I might say stand by the counter with hot food at Elland Road on New Year's Day and say no, that's not for you. We didn't get any hot food at Ewood Park 2 years in a row. If you care to look underneath, there's a fridge there, and there's some sandwiches which are always left there for you.
Not just the press pack, but the media team as well, and any of their backroom
especially the
staff.
media team.
Any of their backroom staff who venture, because sometimes backroom staff do venture in to the press room and avail themselves of the offerings. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That would be only fair and just if they were denied the scrumptious hot food and instead pointed in the direction of plastic packages of sandwiched goods.
Yeah, I mean, scrumptious might be a bit of a bridge too far when it comes to describing the press food at Elland Road, but it is edible. You know, and you know what? You can't say that about everywhere.
No.
Thank you for tuning in to the Inside Elland Road podcast. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas, and yeah, Happy New Year. We'll have to wait and see what 2025 has in store. But from the pair of us on the Inside Elland Road podcast, yeah, have a good one. Bye for now.
Happy New Year.